Well, let's talk more about this now with Jason Johnson in Atlanta. He is a professor of political science at Hiram College. Good to speak with you again, Jason. So 4 pieces of gun legislation, all 4 of them voted down. This was largely expected, though, wasn't it?
Yes, there's no real surprise here. The recent attacks in Orlando, as much as people are concerned about them and they're upset about them, they are not going to force members of Congress to fundamentally vote against their own self-interest. And their own self-interest is they want to have money from the NRA. They want to continue to have that kind of financial support in running for office. And despite the fact that an overwhelming proportion of Americans, Republicans, Democrats, and gun owners think that at least some of these 4 legislative ideas were reasonable policy, Congress is not going to move that way.
So now that Congress has voted this down, has this issue essentially been put to rest now for the rest of the presidential campaign, or will it continue to be talked about?
Well, it's going to continue to be talked about because, to be perfectly honest with you, there will be another shooting. These have happened several times a year for the last several years in the United States. You've had high schools get shot up, and clubs get shot up, and Christmas parties get shot up, and Gabrielle Giffords, a member of Congress, was shot in the head while giving a speech. So we're going to continue to see this level of violence, and you will continue to have the same kinds of conflicts and discussions. You'll have members of Congress send their prayers and their concerns, and then nothing will happen legislatively. Nothing will change in America about gun policy until we do something about how members of Congress get and are lobbied against and for when they're running for office.
And when you look at this from the international point of view, it is very difficult for many people outside the United States to kind of understand why there hasn't been any change in the gun laws. These shootings keep happening, and to many people it just seems like the common sense response to do something about making it harder for people to get these kind of weapons. Just try to make sense out of that for us. And you mentioned there about the power of the gun lobby, but there's something more at work there, isn't it, to do with the Second Amendment and the right to own a gun?
Right. Well, you have a couple of factors. One, there are many Americans who believe that the Constitution says that we have a fundamental right to own a gun and any gun that we can purchase. And many people believe that anything that abridges or makes that more difficult is a violation of the Constitution. What you also have is this. America is a big country. It is a huge country. It's 250 million people. As bad as these tragedies are, the vast majority of Americans have never been personally affected by them. Most Americans have never lost someone in a mass shooting. Most Americans have never been near or survived a mass shooting. I lost someone in the mass shooting in Charleston last year. It is something that I not only understand fundamentally from an intellectual standpoint and a government standpoint, but I understand it personally. But that makes me unique because most Americans don't understand the issue. And so when someone says we have to change these laws now, people will say, well, I think it's important, it means something, but if it hasn't touched them, they're not pushing members of Congress to make those kinds of changes. And that's really at the heart of a lot of these issues, too.
Good to speak with you as always, Jason Johnson, joining us from Atlanta.